They think it has nothing to do with them. You all think it has nothing to do with you, and you're right, it doesn't. It has to do with this red team, blue team nonsense that goes on in Washington. There's somebody yelling on Fox or somebody yelling on MSNBC. I made a very solemn decision last year that I was just not going to be a part of that. That what I was going to focus on in Washington was fixing problems. I was going to focus on reaching across the aisle to find solutions to things that we could do, even while everybody else might be fighting. And I have this theory that if we just focus on the things we agree on, we'll be tired at the end of the day because we got a lot of work to do and we won't have time to fight. And so one of the first things I did, along with Chris, was join a group called No Labels, which is now 80 members of Congress strong. About 50-50, so 40 Republicans, 40 Democrats. And that's the idea. The idea is that we are going to focus on basic stuff, things that we can do together, and we are going to get in a pattern for progress. We are going to get in a pattern of working together and getting things done. And so instead of having some big fight on sequester, in that group we focus on the nonpartisan recommendations of the Government Accounting Office on all the waste and fraud and abuse in the federal government that we should, and there's plenty, that we should all be able to agree on. We focus on things like strategic sourcing in the Pentagon budget, where you could save $50 billion if the Pentagon just bought products the way every good business in America does. And there's a long list of areas where we can work together on things that will make a difference. And so that was the first thing we did, was No Labels. Second thing we did was really focus on picking the right committees that would help the Hudson Valley and allow me to put points on the board and get results for all of you. And so like Chris, I wanted to be on the Agriculture Committee because in my district, as in Chris's, my district is all of Orange County, all of Putnam County, northeastern Westchester, and this part of Dutchess, from Beacon up to just a little bit north of here. And agriculture is fantastic. Well, I've got 1,500 family farms in my district. It's a $100 million industry just in Orange County. It is absolutely critical to the regional economy. And I knew there was going to be a farm bill that we had to get done this year, and that was going to give me an opportunity to write legislation and to put things in that farm bill that would help us here, our families, our farmers. Because as Chris pointed out rightly, forever the farm bill has been about somebody else. It has been about these big guys in the Midwest, direct payments, huge subsidies, paying people not to grow stuff. Had nothing to do with us. This farm bill is historic. This farm bill, for the first time, will really focus on the kind of specialty crop farmers, smaller family farms that we have, under 200 acres, family-owned. I wrote, and Chris is helping me get through a bill to reform the crop insurance program called the Crop Act, which would allow guys here locally to get better crop insurance. Now it's a big problem, and we really saw this after Hurricane Irene. A lot of guys are still trying to get back on their feet from that. It will really help our dairy farmers. It will really help land conservation efforts. It will really help access to markets. It will do many things that Chris detailed that will really drive our local economy. The second committee I wanted to be on was transportation and infrastructure, because as Jonathan will tell you, understanding the regional transportation and infrastructure system is critical to growing business here. Small business, big business, everything else we want to do, agriculture, tourism. I believe infrastructure should be an area where Democrats and Republicans shouldn't have to fight about it. We all ought to agree that it makes sense to invest in our roads and our bridges and our systems. We've always done that as Americans. It has always served us well. I believe we need massive new investments in our public infrastructure, and we do not need to do it all with public dollars. We can leverage private capital in new and creative ways. There's a lot of good ideas out there, but we must get going. We must make progress. We must move forward. So like the Farm Bill and the bill Chris mentioned, MAP 21 last year, in the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, I am absolutely focused on getting things done. So getting the Tappan Zee Bridge, the federal financing assistance it needs to get it done in our lifetimes. Getting real funding over a longer period of time for bridges and roads and water systems. That is the critical work we must do to set the stage for future economic growth. So those two committees allow me to focus, and the subcommittees I'm on, I should say, in T&I, are highways and transit, aviation, because I have Stewart Airport, which I think is very important, and I'm on the water subcommittee. So those are the three most important subcommittees for this area. So I've been blessed by picking the right committees and getting my choices, I should say, in those committees. And one of the great pleasures has been finding people like Chris who I can work with across the aisle, because it is absolutely true for all of us, but particularly when you're in the minority, as I am, and a freshman as I am, that you must find partners across the aisle. If you want to have, if you want to go down to the well of the House and rant and rave at the podium and just turn on C-SPAN, you'll see a lot of it. And bear in mind, most of the time those guys are ranting and raving. They're yelling at an empty chamber. Nobody's even there. So if you want somebody to go down there and make these 1 minute rant and raving, partisan speeches, you got the wrong guy. I have no interest in doing that. And you will not see me on cable TV ranting and raving. What I want to do is I want to find partners across the aisle where we can get things done. And I want to focus on big vehicles that are moving, like the farm bill, like a transportation bill, like a water bill that we'll do this year, where like a guy running alongside a freight train and jumping in a boxcar, I can find a way to run alongside a big vehicle, put something in, and make your tax dollars work for you here. My view is we're all paying these taxes. They should come back here and help you and help our communities and help our region. And the guiding star in everything is returning growth to this economy. We have got to get growing again. We have been down for so long, we've forgotten what it feels like. We need to grow at 3 and 4% again. When I worked for President Clinton in the 90s, we grew at over 4% for 2 or 3 years in a row. That's why we balanced the budget ahead of schedule. That's why we could balance the budget the right way without going after Medicare and fundamental programs that people depend on. We've got to do that again. We've got to get this economy humming again, and we've got to do it in a way that spreads the benefits of economic growth to the middle class. Because for 30 years, the middle class has been moving sideways or slipping backwards, and we've had a horrible spread in wealth inequality in America to the point where we really are at risk of destroying what has always been the integration of our society across economic lines of difference and privilege. Guys like my dad, who came out of the military and raised 6 kids on 1 income. My dad was seriously injured in the Navy. He and my mom had a developmentally disabled daughter and 5 sons. I'm the youngest of 6. My mom says I was lucky to get a name after 5 boys. They're running out of apostles and saints, she likes to say. But Catholics in the room will know what that means. But they could make it on 1 income because my dad had a government that had his back, and that meant they were investing in roads and infrastructure. That means they were good schools for all of us to go to. We all went to public schools. It meant that there was a GI Bill where he could get himself educated. It meant that there was expanding opportunity so the society didn't come apart at the seams. It got reintegrated, and we benefited from everybody's services. And we went to the moon, and we won the Cold War, and we invented things the world couldn't have even imagined before, like the internet that we all take for granted today. And we did it together. We did it moving the middle class forward first. And that's the focus I have in Congress. And I think I best serve that goal by reaching across the aisle, focusing on bread and butter stuff, delivering results for all of you. So it is a great honor to serve in the Congress. It's popular to run down the Congress, and I understand why, because it's frustrating. But I will tell you, there's not a day I don't walk into that House of Representatives and get a lump in my throat. Because my mom and dad, I can tell you what, never thought that a kid of theirs would be a member of the United States Congress. And that place has to work. You're paying for it. We should not be satisfied with a dysfunctional, embarrassing Congress of the United States. We can do better. We have done better. We owe it to the people who built the country, and we owe it to our kids to make it work and to make it deliver results. And so with efforts like No Labels, with efforts like today's discussion, I think we can do that if we just focus on solutions and stop fighting. So let me stop, and we'll take your questions. But thank you for allowing me to be here.
Can you hear me? Okay. So like Chris, like any good game plan for a basketball game, I went in here with a good game plan, and I can see that I have to adjust my plan. So thank you for the opening remarks. I personally have waited a long time to sit with both of these gentlemen. I think we are very, very lucky to have a Democrat and a Republican from both sides of the aisle be here to represent the Valley at this time where we lost a seat. And I hope that that came across in the opening statements. And so I think we wanted the opening statements to go on a little bit longer. So let me just start. So for this year's graduating fellows, this will be where I'll be looking for one of you for the follow-up question. But let me open up here. And Chris, so we'll start with you. Given that today is the graduation of our fellows program, let me start and get your thoughts on leadership. Both of you have chosen careers that require you to make tough decisions on behalf of your constituents. but there is an expectation that you will be good leaders. Our textbook for our class is The Corner Office by New York Times columnist Adam Bryant. Adam cites 5 traits: passionate curiosity, battle-hardened confidence, team smarts, a simple mindedness, and fearlessness that are good qualities of a good leader. Tell us something about your style and what you think makes a good leader, and then the same question will go to you, Sean.
Thank you, Jonathan. And apropos to mentioning the point guard, I mean, that's really the first time in my life I started noticing that that leadership was a natural fit for me on the basketball court. And I viewed my responsibility there was to help orchestrate the win for the team. You know, I wasn't a high scorer, but I was constantly looking for ways to get that bounce pass in to somebody who was the high scorer. And, you know, that performance on the court was critically important. And I had to lead by example. But you know what? It was about something even bigger than the team. It was about the student body. One of the things I noticed when I was a junior, when I wasn't a starter in the point guard, is I wasn't really satisfied with the level of interactivity, the interaction between the team and our fans. And it didn't seem like we fully appreciated our fans, and then sometimes it looked like we were talking down to our fans. And, you know, when I got in that role of leadership, I said, I want our fans to know how much we appreciate them, and that it's an honor to serve them. And so we had an opportunity at the rally right before the first game, and, you know, I kind of viewed that as a moment where I came of age, when I had a chance to connect with the student body about what we were going to try to do for them in this, through the court, through athletics. And so, you know, from that into the military, and a deeply patriotic upbringing, and leading by example was the one thing that I always thought was critically important. And, you know, throughout the combat tours that we had, whether, you know, I was a battalion commander or a G3, and then in Haiti as a brigade commander, integrity, vision, communication of that vision, a plan to supervise, and the requirement, I believe, to be out front and to say that, follow me, this is a very stressful situation, and we realize that everything is at stake, not only the mission, but even our own lives. But it's going to be okay, because there is something greater in this for all of us, in a belief that what we were doing was really right. And so I will tell you that coming from a working class family, starting as a private and rising to colonel, I rejected the false notion when I was in command that I had to choose between the mission and my troops. I always thought if we worked harder, that we would find a way that we would accomplish the mission and take care of the welfare of our men and women and their families. And I brought that philosophy with me to the Congress. You know, it's funny, I remember in 2010 explaining this, and I don't think anybody was listening. Because, you know, when I went down to Congress, you know, I'm looking for ways to grow this economy, but make sure our workers are looked after. So I had some, you know, folks on the right, they're like, he's voting with the unions on something. And I said, look, I explained to you. I mean, I made it very clear to you that I want to see us grow this economy, but I want to make sure nobody's left behind, that we're going to look after workers and make sure that they get part of it. Like Sean talked about, the American dream. And I felt like, you know, now that, you know, some of those, and we have the carpenters here today, God bless them, you know, I think they were pleasantly surprised. But, you know, it comes with this balance, this notion that yes, it's about mission accomplishment, but it's got to be something bigger than that. It's got to be for a reason. And the reason is that everybody gets a chance at this American dream. And let me just close on this point by saying that, you know, that we're all products of our experience. And as much as we try to rise above that, we all seek that objectivity, but I think it's important to embrace who we are, you know, and so whether it be athletics or time in the Army, I think it's all about, it's about empathy. It's about understanding that someone else has a perspective, and it's important to know that perspective, show empathy with that perspective. And as Shaw mentioned, you know, if there's 20 issues and we disagree on 12, let's work on the 8 that it is that we agree upon. You know, and so, and by the way, Peter Welch, who I mentioned earlier, he's a former point guard. So we talk about that. There's a certain view of the world when you're dribbling down, and usually the shortest guy on the team, on the team, and the perspective of, you know. So, you know, our work with No Labels, I'm a co-chair on that effort. And I think it's important. You haven't heard a lot about it, but you will. But you will. So thank you.
I think Chris said that very well, and I'm always happy to have an opportunity to say how much I respect Chris's service. You know, there's a lot of guys in the Congress who talk a lot. Chris has really put his life on the line for his country, and did so honorably. And we had the opportunity to be at a Memorial Day event together on the walkway over the Hudson, not far from here. And I heard Chris speak beautifully about his service and some of the guys who didn't come home. And I wish there were more people in the Congress with Chris's record of sacrifice and service, because we need more like him. Number one. It's true. It's absolutely true. And I don't want to repeat what he said, because I know Jonathan has a bunch of other questions. I think the thing I would add to that is I had the opportunity to spend 3 years every day around the President of the United States. It's an extraordinary experience. My job as staff secretary to President Clinton was to literally read everything the president was supposed to read, and to organize his daily workload, and to figure out what he needed to see and when. The White House has a big funnel called the staff secretary, my job, and it protects the president from information that he's not ready for, or that isn't ready for him, I should say, that hasn't been properly vetted. And the point being that you have a great fly on the wall sort of job. All right, you're sort of the chief paper pusher in the West Wing, but it's a great opportunity to watch the president every day for 3 years. And one of the things I learned about leadership from President Clinton is that oftentimes leaders spend all their time feeling powerless, feeling like they can't get anybody to do anything. And anybody who leads an organization in this room knows what I'm talking about. It's like you spend all your time begging people to do what they ought to do anyway, right? Telling them, giving up something you shouldn't have to give up, bending over backwards when they ought to just do it. You learn pretty early on not to tell people why it's right, but why it makes sense for them, what's in it for them. And I think what leaders do well is they understand that it's got to make sense for people, and that there's other people who have to participate, and you've got to move forward together as a team, as a country, as a Congress. And you can't, and I tell you what, I mean, I worked for 14 months for Eliot Spitzer too, and I saw a different management style there, which was, we're going to take that hill, and we're going straight up at it. And sometimes that's effective too, but I think what works over time is when you realize that we're in this together. I need to listen to you. I need to understand where you're coming from. And as Chris says, if we can get 50, 60, 70% of the things that we agree on done, and keep working on the other 30 or 40, that's how progress works. That's how it looks. I think we got too many people in Washington right now who think, if I give up one thing, I've lost. If I don't get 100% of what I want, I've failed. And if I don't get it right now, I'm going to stop everything and take my ball and go home. And that just cannot work in a country like ours that is diverse and complicated and leading the world. We're supposed to be leading the world. We've got to get stuff done, and we've got to do it now. And so my take on leadership is that sometimes being a leader means that you're willing to take criticism for not being perfect, that you're willing to take criticism for not getting everything, because you're making progress, and you're going to circle back around and get the other 4 or 5 things you didn't get, and you're going to focus on the 5 or 6 things you could get. Like getting in shape, politics is doing what you can until you can do what you want. And that is the key, is you've got to focus on things that can get done, because I think the alternative, it means you're just one more talking head on TV. You're just one more loud person clanging around. And I think you all deserve better, even when it comes with criticism for why we couldn't get more sooner.
Okay, sorry, but the next question first question will go to one of the current Pattern Fellows, as this is their leadership event. So does one of them want to venture forth here with a question? Sure.
You mentioned several characteristics about leadership. Which do you feel are the most important for communicating your vision and getting buy-in to that vision?
I think more than anything else, integrity is important, because it really ties together a lot of what's been mentioned. One of the things that Sean just mentioned is to be secure in yourself, to know that every day that you get up, you're trying to be the best person that you can be. You're trying to serve others and get things done. And that means you may be subjected to criticism because you didn't get everything that you'd hoped to get done, or that you had to compromise. You had to accommodate because we're in a democratic process. And I think that when you reduce it back, it's really about integrity, because it's the pursuit of excellence. It's the pursuit of virtue in every respect that I think really defines integrity. And, you seem, just in the moment you stand, you seem like an earnest person that really is endeavoring to do good for others. And, that's what I would hearken you to, is the old axiom, know thyself, and then be true to thyself.
I don't have anything to add to that. I think that's great. The one code I would put on that is that I think that we work in an imperfect business, and